This is Between the Lines, presented by Continental Diamond. I'm Gabe Henderson. That's Ben Leber. And Ben, for the first time since 2020, or just the seventh time in franchise history, the Vikings start this season 0-3. You just had a conversation with the player development guy from the LA Chargers, and he pretty much said, hey, look, you're only 2 games behind the other team in front of you, and it's only up from here. He said that's how they would have looked at it if they would have lost today. What are your thoughts on today's game?
I mean, it's easy for him to come over here with all sorts of smiles, and they get their first win, and he's like, look, guys, let's just be positive, look on the bright side. There's some silver lines, but it's hard to do that right now, especially when you're feeling the immediate feelings of the loss. Yeah. Maybe if you and I talk on Wednesday or Thursday of this week, I can have that sort of sentiment, but this one hurts. This is not a good feeling, especially since we did so many good things. Offensively, we had a ton of yards, almost 500 yards of total offense, and how do you fall short? It's just it's mind-boggling and beyond frustrating.
Let's talk about the run game. Going into this game, the Vikings had not ran the ball on two consecutive plays all season.
Yeah.
Kevin O'Connell knew that. The first 5 plays of today's game were all runs, I believe about 35 yards. What were your thoughts just on this run game today that finally got 100 yards all-purpose?
I loved it. He came in, he's talked about it before. He's like, I know I have to do a better job being balanced, and I got to be more intentional about running. And, sometimes the games go a little bit sideways and he doesn't ever get to that. But here he comes out 5 straight run plays, and they were quick hitting, downhill. You saw Alexander Madison running really hard and breaking tackles. So, I loved that because you go back and look at the week 1 with the Chargers and the Dolphins. You look at the first quarter for the Dolphins. Everybody wants to talk about the 466 yards of passing that they had, but they set all of that up because in the first quarter, 7 of the 13 offensive plays for the Dolphins were runs.
Yep.
And so I was hoping that these 5 runs and this intention of running the ball was going to open up the passing game. We got away from it a little bit, but, we were physical. And I think we proved a lot to ourselves that we could run the ball physically, especially on the left side of our offensive line.
And it worked early and it worked often. Granted, we did have that fumble by T.J. Hockenson on that first drive, but the Vikings came out in that second drive, 2 straight passes, Justin Jefferson, 55 yards. So to be able to be balanced, the first 20 plays, 10 runs, 10 passes, the balance that Kevin O'Connell tried to ensue this game. What were your thoughts on that?
Well, that's exactly what, he keeps talking about is finding some balance. And again, it doesn't have to be 50-50. Right. It's just this idea that you can run the ball a little bit more. I was hoping maybe to see a little bit more complementary sort of run to pass, the same sort of run action with a little bit of play action off of it. But, again, the Chargers were going a lot of too high safety. So it allowed us to run the ball. They had a light run box. We took advantage of that. And then when we brought they bring a safety in, then we could throw the ball. So I thought the manipulation of their defense was exactly what you're looking for offensively.
You talk about defense. I want to move to our defense. This is a game where we gave up the most receptions to any player in franchise history. Keenan Allen, 18 receptions today. Just you don't want to see that if you're a defense. But I believe from a fan perspective, they want to see us blitzing. We did a lot of that. What are your thoughts on blitzing a lot, but also giving up some of those passing yards on the back end?
Look, I don't think that we're going to change our stripes anytime soon. And they understood that. Kellen Moore, their offensive coordinator, I'm sure he looked at Brian Flores' defense from the present time to the past time. He's like, he doesn't change. He's just going to pressure. He's going to blitz. He's going to try to bring the illusion of blitz and then drop 8. And so he had a game plan. And the game plan was, we're not going to let your disguise or your blitz and pressures get to our quarterback and affect the passing game. So a lot of those outside whip screens, bubble screens, they're high completion, success rate, and it's designed to be basically outside run plays. And that's what they did. And, we just didn't really have an answer. And I would say overall, our secondary did a good job of running the chute, run the alley, making some clean tackles in open space, but it eventually wears you down. And they hit us with a double pass, and that kind of was a setup for everything.
Yeah, I want to go back to that last point because you talk about some of those quick screens, some of those quick passes to kind of get the ball on the edge. I believe Justin Herbert, 12 of his first 17 throws were quick game.
Yeah.
For a defense, what does that put pressure on the most? Who does that put pressure on the most?
Well, there's only so many ways you can design coverage when you're blitzing 5 and 6 guys, and you obviously can play man coverage in those situations. One guy misses, not a whole lot of guys in the back end that can pick up those pieces and get those guys down. So you got to be very selective when you run some man blitzes. The other thing is you can have 3 guys underneath and 3 over the top. there's just too many zones and too many holes on the field to cover all that grass. So it just makes guys stress a little bit about being in the right place all the time. And then really when it comes down to tackles, you have to make a clean tackle. And again, I thought they did a good job, but throughout 4 quarters, it stresses you out mentally.
What is the identity of this team? Sitting here at 0-3, 475 total yards, you look at just the stats and it's like you're supposed to win this game. So what is the identity?
I mean, offensively, the identity is that we can move the ball and we can pick up yards and we can score points. I think, unfortunately, the identity of our defense is, yes, we're going to bring some pressure, but now teams know that.
Yeah.
The reason why we weren't effective is because they game planned for everything that we were doing. They had a hat on a hat. We didn't win any one-on-ones up front. When you bring that much pressure, somebody has to win.
Yeah.
You're hoping that your guy, your individual guy, is better than their individual guy, and they beat us more consistently today. So, unfortunately, our identity is to bring a lot of pressure, but we don't pack a lot of punch.
Yeah. How much of I'm going to preface this by saying the kids always when they use the word cold, that means somebody's doing really well or they're really good at their job.
Yeah.
Justin Herbert is cold.
Oh, he's cold. Yeah.
What were your thoughts on just trying to balance that out with still trying to tackle and get pressure and then him just being who he is?
Well, you watch on film. The guy's very athletic. He showed it a little bit today, eluding some of the rush. He had one scramble, I think, for 13 yards up the gut. The guy can run, but he doesn't really want to run. He does a really good job of using his eyes to pull safeties around. When he's poised in the pocket, he can pick you apart. And that's what I was hoping we wouldn't allow him to do with our pressure-packed defense. But he did. Their offensive line, the running backs, their tight ends, they did a good job max protecting. And when he has time to sit there and drop back situations and just pick you apart and survey the defense, he's unbelievable. Yep. So we didn't do a very good job at all of getting him to move and make decisions on the move outside the pocket.
Well, moving forward, the Carolina Panthers, they're playing right now against the Seattle Seahawks, and they're going to look at this film and say, okay, this is what the Vikings did well, this is what they did not do well. So if you're the Vikings, how do you build on this going forward?
Well, now we know that we can run the ball a little bit. So defensively, Carolina's got a very good defense.
Yeah.
They got a lot of good individual parts. They're going to bring it on defense. So they're going to be ready for us. Hopefully, our guys can be better than them. But the biggest thing is whether or not their rookie sensation quarterback is going to play. He was out today. Andy Dalton gets the start. Is he going to play next week? And the one thing that has to be changed, and I'll hit it on the head again, is when we pressure, we have to be effective.
Yeah.
When we think that we're going to pressure and we drop out, we have to be effective. So somehow in the next week, before we play next week, we've got to find some dogs up front that can win a pass rush one-on-one. If not, you're going to see a lot of the same thing. The MO to beat us is going to be throw quick to the outside, stress our secondary out, force us to make the mistake.
No more mistakes from here. We got to go 14-3 or at least finish the season with the winning record. But, even though we're on 3, the next man up is the Carolina Panthers. So let's just pound those Panthers next week and get our first win of the season. For Ben Leber, my name is Gabe Henderson. This was Between the Lines, presented by Continental Diamond.